Hi, I'm Randee Hamblin. Today I want to show you how to do watercolors on fabric. Yes, on fabric, not canvas or watercolor paper. And it's really pretty simple. You only need a few tools, and even if you think you can't draw, you can do this. You can trace and you can just play and let the watercolors go wherever they want to, and then you'll have a great outcome no matter what. One of the easiest ways to start is with Inktense Pencils or any other pencil that will give you a watercolor look once you wet it. There are several different brands that are designed for creating a watery effect on watercolor paper or canvas, and these are easy to use on fabric. There are also Inktense blocks, which is the same thing basically, but it's in a block shape rather than a pencil. I found that if I use just a good quality white woven fabric, I got good results. First I tried prepared for dyeing fabric. It's called PFD. But you know, I found that just a good tight woven fabric worked just as well as PFD. Once I saw a demonstration of how it was done, my imagination took off and I said, I want to do that. So I did, and I combined sewing and watercolor paints, which are the Inktense pencils, to create this. Now, of course, I always like to draw flowers and leaves. Those are my first and easiest go-to kinds of subjects, rather than something more complicated like a butterfly or even a landscape. But this one I liked because I was able to combine stitching on the sewing machine, changing colors of thread to give it more depth and more shading, back and forth, back and forth. And if you look closely, you can see I outlined the leaf and the stem in green thread and complemented that up here with purple thread, red, little bit of orange. And then of course you see the stamens poking out. That was hand sewing with a little bit of black thread and a French knot to accentuate it. Again, give it a little more depth and a realistic look. Then I painted the background with just a wash. And all a wash is diluted paint, or in this case, the Inktense pencil. I diluted it until I got a fairly faint blue wash. And then of course, it was a little too pale, so I did a second layer. And then you might be able to see these little spatter marks. To make it more like a watercolor, take your brush and flick with your fingernail and you'll get the tiny little spatter dots. And of course, I sewed matching outline fabric to turn it into a wall hanging. You can see there's my sleeve so that I can hang it on the wall. I very proudly have this in my office. Supplies are pretty basic. A cup of water, little mixing palette, brushes, and I just got introductory level student brushes. I think as I do more of this, I might upgrade a little bit, but the introductory beginner brushes work just fine. But you will also need something called fabric medium. This helps to thicken the wash and thicken the ink as you work with it. So you can either get an intense color or you can keep it from running. Now, watercolor, sometimes we like the running spreading look, very pale, kind of goes where it wants to. But sometimes you want to hold the color right at the edge, and the textile medium helps with that. For example, again, when I painted this, I did not want the blue to bleed in to the pink orange, and I did not want the pink orange to bleed outside the line. So definitely used a lot of textile medium to hold it in place. There's another kind of medium that I just discovered, iridescent, and it does just what you think. It'll give an iridescent or pearl looking effect with the ink, and it's really fun. That's all we'll be using for today, so let me show you how I start. So again, the tools are pretty simple. We start with water in a palette, and I can control how diluted or how intense the color will be simply by how much water I use, or even the textile medium. I traced both of these, and they're very similar. In fact, I just went out to my garden. I got a pansy, brought it in, looked at it, kind of drew around it, turned it another way, drew around it, and then made a very similar drawing over here by layering it on top, holding it up to the light, and tracing. Now you can go to the window, you can use a light box, but I figured this is good enough. I just need an outline. So the one advantage or distinctive quality that Inktense pencils have is they can go very intense. The other aspect is they can be diluted and watered down. Let me show you the Inktense intense look first, and then we'll come back over here and dilute it all the way down and just get a simple wash. First of all, I'm going to outline with a dark color. This is ink black, and I'm just going to follow my pencil lines, and it's not going to be a solid line. Try to do a little wiggly look to it because that's the way nature is, and I don't have to be perfect in drawing curvy lines or whatever. A little wiggling, and that's more like the outline of a petal. Then I'm also going to get the violet color, come right along to give it just the feeling of shading, right along parallel. Now I have the violet colored pencil, which is also dark, but it's got more color to it. And I'm going to follow along the line that I drew with the black, just close enough to give it the appearance of some dimension and shading, almost like a shadow. Now sometimes it's a little hard to draw on paper, fabric. I'm holding my fingers here. Keep the tension so I can draw on it. All right. I have water in this palette. I have fabric medium here. I'm going to combine them just to give me a little more range, however I want to play. Now I'm going to follow my line. You'll see the color now is coming to life. And And it does not take much liquid or fabric medium, textile medium, to make the Inktense color pop. And because I'm going for the watercolor look, I'm blurring this line, not too sharp, just blurred. And now I want to bring some of the purple down into this part of the petals. So I can get it wet. I can use a wet brush and slide down on the color, get color on my brush, and keep painting. If I think that's too intense, I can dilute it and get a softer wash here. Need a little more color. I can let that dry and then put a slightly different color in for shading, but I'm also going to try it wet, see what look I get. Just blending, just playing. If I think those lines aren't quite right, I'm going to brush them out. Just let it have some color. So you can see this is a softer look already than the very strong lines drawn here. I used a lot of textile medium to make that very strong, make it pop. This is more color wash. After that dries, I'll come back with another layer of color and make it more intense. All you really need to do is play till you get something that you like. If you want to watch other people play with Inktense pencils and see what kind of effect they can get or the techniques that they use, there are several tutorials or just demonstrations on YouTube. One of the things they recommend is starting with a grid so that you can have your samples. So I drew squares. This one tells me what I'm doing. Pencil first, then add water, and I'll see what kind of effect that gives me. I can use water first to wet the fabric, then add the pencil. I'm going to add the textile medium, let that dry, add the pencil. Medium first, so medium, then dilute it, then add the pencil, and any variation you can think of. Then you have a reference guide. Here I was playing with green and the iridescent medium, and going for more of a wash look with less medium. This is very controlled. That's a lot of textile medium there. You can see it doesn't blend over the line. And just playing to see what kind of look I would have. Now we want to see how to make the really faint color wash. This is where you'll use a lot of water and very little textile medium. So we've put a little medium here with water, and we can paint off the color with the paintbrush into the water. create a very faint violet wash. When we apply it, we hope we get the look that we want. No medium first, just a faint, delicate wash to see how strong the color is going to be. Not very strong, so we might want to add some color. One way to do this is start with color close into the center and less color or even white space out toward the edge. That's actually more color than I want. Paper towels. Blot it. Now I can start over with a more diluted amount of paint on my brush. I will let that dry, then I will come back with this very faint reddish color to complete the shading, and again, just give it some more interest and dimension. While that's drying, I can work on the leaf. I'm going to draw directly on the fabric with the pencil. Outlining it, and a little faint color here. Clean brush, a little bit of water. Let's see what we get. It's dark enough, too dark. That's the darker green. This is a leaf green. Try and see if I can lighten this. Yes, there's a faint color difference, a little yellow-green. Like these. Now this, I'm going to darken slightly, so a little more in line with the darker green we have there. A little bit of water. Make it bloom and come alive. Okay, it's coming out darker than I want. This is the eraser. I'm thinking I've created a problem for myself by putting one color on the brush when I was trying to brush off this color. So now I'm going to go to a much lighter green. And it's watercolor. Happy accidents are part of the design. Little bit of water. There you have a leaf. Now I'm going to try to combine two colors to get this faint pinkish purplish wash. So you can see by the ends I'm playing with a reddish and a purplish, and hopefully if I dilute it I get the color that I'm looking for. Now it might take some experimenting, which is why I work with the grids, or I just wing it. I have a tint to this. Let's see how intense it is. Small brush, clean brush. Always clean off your brushes before you start working with a different color. See what it comes out to look like. Nope, not nearly enough. I'm going to wash it, see if I can blend it. So it matches this. And again, white space near the edge of the leaf is just fine. Gives a little more realistic shading. And I can paint over the previous color wash that I have. If you let the previous color dry completely and then put a new color over, it will layer. That is, the under layer and the top color will stay distinct from each other. If the bottom layer is still wet before you put the top one on, hasn't had a chance to dry, they will blend. And sometimes it's a beautiful color, sometimes it's mud, just brown-ish, something gray blob. So again, a matter of experimenting to see if your colors will layer or if they'll just become a mottled blob. One of the things about painting is trying to figure out when to stop. When are you done? When does it look like what you want it to look like? I'm thinking I need to add a little something. I might try a very faint line in the petals, again, to just give it a little dimension. This is a fine line Sharpie, purple. Just want to give it a little impression of the grow lines. might be a little too subtle. I might have to wait till the Inktense wash has dried and then try again. Right now, because it's wet, it's almost acting like a mask. Needs a little more red. Now I've put the red, now it needs to be diluted and blended in. I think that's a good stopping point. I'm going to let that dry, look at it again, see if I want to add more color, play, leave it alone, or maybe even shade some of the other pansies. Again, give it a little more depth, make it match, look a little more similar. You can't go wrong. You just keep playing till you get the outcome that you like. So again, it can be really simple like this, where you outline the flowers first and then just do a color wash. This has kind of a fun, primitive look to it. Or spend more time doing shading inside the petals after you've outlined with a pen that could be a Sharpie or ink. Or work and work on it till you get exactly the right shading that you want. Very layered, very intense with two colors. And then add hand stitching or machine stitching. And again, there's no wrong outcomes. You just keep playing till you get what you like and that what you want to sew on or turn into a wall hanging, or cut and glue to a card so that you can make a greeting card. Just keep playing. I hope you've enjoyed this session, this class, and all of the classes that are available to you through the Learn and Share series. I'd really like to appreciate and send my thanks to the town of Leonardtown, the Arts Council, and especially New View Fiberworks for allowing us to use the studio and all of the support to bring this to you. Thank you. We've had a lot of fun on our end producing the classes. I hope you have fun on your end, watching them and maybe even experimenting with some new fun ways to be creative.